Hello there.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars being hands-on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today we have a great episode of In the Galaxy. This is the second and final episode of season 19 and a half, as we're unofficially calling it, of Star Wars in the Galaxy. Our little interlude between the Bad Batch and then the next season of Star Wars television we're going to be covering, which is indeed Andor.
Can you feel the hype?
You can feel the hype on one half of the screen. Yes. Anyway, but today we watched the 4th, 5th, and 6th shorts from Tales of the Empire, all dedicated to revealing the story post Order 66 of Barriss Offee. Finally, after 9 friggin' years, we finally know what happens to and we don't, and it was left mysterious at the end of the 3rd. Oh, damn it. Okay, we're back where we started. Anyway, Jake and I are not alone, of course, but we are joined by who I'm unofficially dubbing our Tales of correspondent, because I had the idea we had them on for Tales of the Jedi. I'm like, yeah, I have a feeling Star Wars is going to keep doing these Tales of, and frankly, they should. And so I think we'll just have Andy every single time on we cover our Tales.
Not complaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for asking.
Oh, wonderful.
Great. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, we have the 3 shorts. Jacob and I are going to summarize the 3 shorts, and then we'll just get into a discussion about Barriss's arc in these 3, which is so just crazy to me that I get to say that. Because I remember, I feel like it was always a bit touch and go with Barriss, where it was like, okay, we have a Muriel Inquisitor in not Barriss. Okay, we have a new female Inquisitor in Jedi Fallen or not Barriss. There were a bunch of times where I was convinced that Barriss was going to show back up, and then she just didn't, and then they just dropped the trailer. I remember it was April or something like that, being like, yeah, so Barriss has come back, and I was just like, oh, I thought you had forgotten about that.
It's the biggest fake out ever that for years Star Wars Rebels just let everyone, go wild, wondering if Barriss was the 7th sister. And now we finally get the definitive. We kind of knew for a while. We finally get the definitive answer. No, Barriss was actually a different, very short-lived Inquisitor. But Eli, let's do the summaries. Which ones do you want to take?
I'll take Devoted, and I'll take Realization, and then you can take the Way Out, maybe?
All right, for sure, yeah.
All right. In Devoted, Barriss Offee sees the burning of the Jedi Temple on the night of the Great Jedi Purge in her cell. The night it's happening. The next day, she is approached by an old friend, Lynn Rakish, who now goes by the title 4th Sister, who asks her to join the Inquisitorius. Barriss joins, and she and Lynn, 4th Sister, go to the currently being built Fortress Inquisitors on the moon of Nur. While there, Barriss reunites with some other fallen Jedi who all are trying to vie to be the next Inquisitor. There are several challenges that they have to go to, and although she still seems uncertain about the whole thing, Barriss indeed passes the initiation and becomes the newest member of the Inquisitorius. The Grand Inquisitor then announces to her and a bunch of other Inquisitors, who I'm sure we're going to talk about later in the episode, to meet their new master, to which we hear the iconic breathing of Darth Vader in the background, something that I'm very eager to talk about for a specific reason. In Realization, Barriss and Lynn, or 4th Sister, are sent to a planet on the galactic frontier where there have been rumors that the Grand Inquisitor has sent them on, that a Jedi is hiding out on the planet. Barriss and Lynn go in to the village. Lynn, 4th Sister, intimidates the hell out of all of the citizens who are living on a small town on the frontier into trying to figure out where the Jedi is. Barriss, however, takes a bit more of an empathetic tone with a young child, who eventually reveals to her where the Jedi is. She and Lynn then go to kill the Jedi, and both of them have a massive fight with the Jedi, and Barriss pleads with this Jedi several times that they should that they should surrender and join the Inquisitorius, but they refuse, and Lynn ruthlessly murders them. And horrified at the merciless killing of this Jedi, Barriss decides to reject the path of the Inquisitorius and force push Lynn off of the cliff. They would not see each other again for many, many years.
Fast forward to the final episode, The Way Out. We find ourselves on a, do we know the name of the planet?
No,
a
we don't.
snowy planet, a snowy waste. A man and a woman are trudging their way through a blizzard, and they find their way to the hut of a person that we only know thus far as the healer. We come inside, and they bring their baby to the healer, who is revealed to be none other than a much older and wiser Barriss Offee. Barriss says, this baby seems fine, in perfect health. What's the problem? And the parents explain, well, Barriss, the Empire came to town, and they blood tested all the kids, and whatever they found for our child, it scared the heck out of them. And we're worried that they're going to take her. We've heard what the Empire has been doing to these kids. Barriss tells her story. She says, I was once a Jedi. I was taken from my family, not by the Empire, but by the Jedi as a little kid. And so Barriss explains, your child is not a Jedi. However, the Empire will be coming after them. It is at this point that Barriss's her helpers, her friends come into the tent and say, someone is coming. Something is coming. So Barriss gives the family the way out. She tells them to go through the caves. You'll find my ship. Take my ship. I'm sending you to an old friend who will tell you what to do. And she sets the family off. And who is back but the fourth sister? Fourth sister confronts Barriss, says that after all these years of trying to find you, when I'm not looking for you, I find you. The fourth sister tries to slash Barriss down with her lightsaber, but Barriss manages to dodge all her blows and says, I won't stand in your way, but I warn you, if you go after that child into the caves, you will not come out. The fourth sister does not heed Barriss's warning. She goes into the cave maze, following the family. She is not able to find them. She is trapped amidst illusions, perhaps caused by Barriss, perhaps by her own fear. She's going around in circles. She can't find her way out. She's getting more and more angry until finally she blames Barriss, says, Barriss, you've done this. She lashes out with her lightsaber and ends up killing Barriss, who was behind her. However, Barriss says, I forgive you, Lynn. She says, the Empire wants you to think that there's no way out, but there is a way out. And the Empire ends with Lynn saying, I'm going to get you out of here. And she carries Barriss's body out of the entrance of the cave. Very, very cool episode. A lot to talk about in these 3 episodes. So let's go back to Devoted. Eli, where do you want to start us off? Where should we
I
get into this one?
No, I just want to first say how glad I am that we finally have the story.
Oh, absolutely.
I should say that we finally have part of this story, because this is the only, as much as and Barriss's shorts, I'd say, if you asked me to rank the 4 tales, I think Barriss comes in solidly at number 2, below Dooku and above Morgan and Ahsoka.
These were some of my favorites as well. I really enjoyed these.
These are weird, however, to me, because I don't know if either of you feel this way, but this feels unfinished to me in a way that Morgan's, Dooku's, and Ahsoka's don't.
I do think it's interesting that in Tales of the Jedi, we looked at 2 characters who weren't Jedi. And in Tales of the Empire, we looked at 2 characters who weren't really Imperial. So whatever they do next, I am sort of interested in who's coming. But as far as these Barriss episodes, yeah, it's a snapshot. I would love to see a 20-issue comic run filling in gaps, or a novel. I think that'd be really cool. But as it stands, it is nice to get a taste of what Barriss is up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually say this is just a thing I was thinking about, and maybe I understand that people have strong feelings about this character, and so I'm pretty neutral on this character overall. I will say a Barriss show that like details what she was up to and like does hidden path connections and all that kind of stuff. In the vein of what a lot of people were thinking about after Bad Batch of a Ventress show, like I think I might be more interested in that show if Barriss is the main character, just because I think I like her a bit more as a character than Ventress.
I feel like when these episodes aired, we assumed that the old friend was Ahsoka. I do think it'd be really interesting if the friend was Ventress.
That is interesting. Because I like that. We'll talk about this later. I just assumed carte blanche was Ahsoka. And even Wikipedia, I was looking it up just to look at timeline stuff. Wikipedia also assumes it's Ahsoka, but we don't know that. Yeah, no, it being Ventress is very interesting. That's a really interesting idea. Yeah.
Well, before we get too deep, I do want to bring something up that in an interview, E.K. Johnston, the Star Wars author, got asked, like, who's a character you'd want to write? And I think it was even just like in a tweet. It maybe wasn't even an interview. And she said, I'd really want to write, oh my goodness, I completely just had a brain fart. Who are we talking about?
Barriss?
Barriss, thank you. Oh, so embarrassing. I really want to write Barriss. And she said something along the lines of, I think it'd be heartbreaking if she became an Inquisitor. And Johnston for years has gotten hate for saying that. For years has gotten hate for it. And like, this ruled. Like, this was great. Like, it's so much better to have a character go through something like this and have like a really nuanced journey than to have them just die in the purge or to be like executed in her cell. Like, yeah. I think this was awesome. So I'm really satisfied with like this explanation for like how Ventress escaped. And I think it's bonkers that people were up in arms screaming at E.K. Johnston for this for years.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And one of the things I specifically agree about, like how I love this is done, is I really like that Barriss does have that redemptive aspect to her arc. It would have been very easy to do what they did with Morgan, to have her go on a path to ruin, just like they did with Morgan. But I think I think somebody who hasn't had the best and clearest path in the past, blew up the Jedi Temple, a part of the Jedi Temple and all that kind of stuff, and framed her best friend for it. But I really like
her girlfriend for it.
I really like that even after that, she's still like, I don't really know how I feel about the Jedi.
I don't want to end up on an FBI watch list, but I don't think Barriss did anything wrong in the Clone Wars, which is a spicy meatball of a take. But
absolutely, it is.
She was right. Like, the Jedi were being controlled by a Sith, and the war was unjust, and innocents were dying. And if she had succeeded in her plan, she would have been remembered as a revolutionary hero in the same way that we remember the Boston Tea Party guys, I don't think she did anything that bad. I mean, not to make everything about Andor, but that's why I love Andor, where we see a teenager build a pipe bomb and chuck it at cops, and it's framed as heroic.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, that is a spicy meatball of a take, no doubt. But I agree with you, Andy. I think that part of what makes Barriss's kind of, her tragedy of a story as a character, part of what makes that interesting is the fact that, like you said, she makes some very questionable choices that I think she makes some very, very bad choices during the Clone Wars. But she fundamentally is not completely, or however you look at it, she's fundamentally not necessarily just an evil character. She really is in many ways conscientious, even if in many ways I also feel that she is not in her actions in the Clone Wars. So I think it's nice that we get a continuation of that story, that even in the very, very relatively short sort of time span of these 3 15-ish minute episodes, I think it really does justice to her character and sort of continues her story and finishes up her story in a way that is both cathartic to see her, have some experiences where she manages to come out fundamentally still or sort of return to a good place, while also it's not overly saccharine. It's not sort of taking away the complexity of who she is and the choices that she is making from the situations that she is in. So, I agree with you that this is one of I think, of sort of the stories that we get in these tales of. This might even be my favorite one. I think I really, really, really enjoyed these, and I think that
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
it is.
like Barriss is number 2 on my list, but it's pretty close between hers and Dooku's. I love both of them so much for for extremely different reasons. And I think one of the things that is interesting, building off both of what you were saying, is that she that's the thing that's most interesting to me about Devoted, actually, is that at the beginning of the short, she sees the Jedi Temple burning, and a totally in character response would have been, haha, yeah, those fuckers deserved it. But no, she's sad. She is worried. She is I didn't expect her immediately to feel bad about a place that she herself had attacked burning. But I really like that character, that nuanced detail, which is that she, there was a love for the Order, or at least for what for the ideals of the Order that fueled her. We've strayed too far from our purpose. We have, we have Jacob, we have lost our way.
It's been a while since I talked about the Jedi losing their way. Maybe this is a good episode to. Eli always pokes fun at me for I always seem to come back to, despite how much I love the Jedi, I always come back to how the Jedi lose their way. I mean, yeah, that's Barriss. I don't think she necessarily has a super. I don't think she has an absolutely concrete idea about where she stands, and I think that she understands that, although the Jedi, have really lost their way by the time of the Clone Wars, they are also struggling against something else that is quite sinister. So I think that it is very in character for her to, be concerned for, the friends that she still has within the Order, the Order as a whole, even though she hates what it has become enough to set off a bomb inside their headquarters. But yeah, I mean, what I loved about this episode the most, was I think the opening scene, the sound flashback, leading into her and her cell. Of course, I love so much how aesthetically they kind of hone in on. They hone in on, how do I say it? I'm blanking here. They use the aesthetics and the art direction and the cinematography really, really beautifully to just hone in on sort of visualizing what the characters are going through. And I love as well how much her cell at the beginning looks like the cells on Stygian Prime in Star Wars Rebels. Like it's almost identical to the cell where
Where
Luminara is
her
being
master.
held, where her master, went to die. And I think that is not without. I have a hard time imagining that is without purpose. I would
Yeah.
say, and
I will just
I
say,
love that.
Yeah.
I will just say, I was just thinking for a second. I didn't actually write this down in the note, but I remember like she was like saying like in the way out she was saying like to when she was like describing her life to the parents, like I was trained by a great master. I'm like, well, great is definitely a word that I'm not sure I would use for Luminara.
You don't think Luminara was great? He was very accomplished.
I think the Martez sisters may have something to say about that.
Oh yeah, true. Okay. You can't win them all. Yeah, you can't win them all.
Yeah, but yeah, Andy, what do you think about like the first I'm thinking like before they go to Nur, like that section of the
It's fine. It's nothing that we haven't really seen before, except for maybe the interesting fact that it seemed like Barriss and the fourth sister knew each other, and that I wonder if other Inquisitors were recruited by people they specifically knew. Like, I think that's kind of a compelling and interesting thing to explore.
I know that the book that I haven't read this book, but I've heard quite a bit about Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, which I feel like is the closest in subject matter book we have to this episode. And I know that in that book there was an informant in the temple who was like telling Palpatine, "Hey, this woman Iscad over here, she would make great Inquisitor material."
Yeah.
So I'm wondering like maybe that guy, I think his name was Hizo. I'm like maybe that guy was responsible for all of them, or maybe just some of them, or like.
But like, yeah, the fourth sister was already an Inquisitor, and then she came to Barriss, and it seemed like they had a relationship. So I find that pretty compelling. That like, hey, we're gonna pick the person who has the best chance at this sales pitch. But
Yeah.
The rest of it is all kind of stuff that we knew or figured, except for finding out that Barriss finally was confirmed to be part of the Inquisitorius. I almost said Inquisition because I have Dragon Age on my brain.
By the way, this is something I'm saying in my notes, and I'm just like, just so you both aren't confused. The Inquisitorius is a faction of dark side force users that are trained to hunt down the Jedi Order of Old. When the Inquisitors are mentioned as an organization, they're called the Inquisitorius.
Yes.
The act of being an Inquisitor, like when somebody is being an Inquisitor, they are inquisiting. I don't make the rules. That's just how English works. So anytime I say, "Oh, when you catch Barriss inquisiting," that's what I'm talking about.
All right, fair enough.
I had too much fun saying. So yeah, while Fourth Sister is inquisiting, I'm like, that's just going to be part of my vocabulary from now on. I just like that too much.
But Eli, does that refer to specifically the active hunting of Jedi, or every waking moment that they spend as an Inquisitor?
Well, I said
You're going to have to be more specific if you want to.
The first time I
this.
wrote it in my notes was at the beginning of Realization, which is them hunting down a Jedi. So I think it is the act of like physically being on the hunt for a Jedi is inquisiting.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to get to a detail that I know Jacob is excited about, which is Jason Isaacs is back. Or this is the first time I guess we're talking about Jason Isaacs on. This is the first time we're talking about Jason Isaacs on this show because Obi-Wan was Rupert Friend, and now Jacob's favorite Inquisitor voice is back.
Yeah, it was nice. I was not a huge fan of the way that the Grand Inquisitor was directed and portrayed in Kenobi. I thought that I just liked how he came off much more in Rebels. I thought that he was, much more memorable and intimidating, and sort of brought a different presence as, an Imperial villain. And he seemed much more sort of that, very, very he's much more that sort of well-worn mold of the, sort of, haughty, snooty kind of, big, speech giving, kind of Imperial officer in Kenobi. So I was a little bit disappointed that he was very clear compared to his performance in Rebels originally in season one. He was very clearly directed in his voice acting to kind of reconcile his original performance with
I
the
was gonna
Rupert
say that because I
Friend
told you about that last time.
performance
I was
in
wondering. I was
yeah.
wondering if you had picked up on that. Like, I'm wondering
I,
if that
I,
was
I
just
mean,
me.
it's very clear, and it's definitely nitpicking, but just as someone who really, really, as someone who holds Rebels very, very dear in my heart as a show, it was a little bit disappointing that we didn't go back to what I kind of consider and experience to be the most compelling, convincing version of this character. But nevertheless, I think that he does, as a character, I think the Grand Inquisitor does what he needs to in this episode. I think, he kind of serves he serves to kind of articulate, the Sith, not Sith, but the Sith influenced, dark side philosophy that Vader, Palpatine himself, that they're trying to use to sort of win over these, ex Jedi who are in, various states of disaffection or disillusionment with the Jedi Order. The training scene, for example, I found it to be absurdly cool and fun to watch. And the music, the choreography, the art direction of that room that we're in, it kind of felt like a live visual demonstration of the Jedi versus Sith sort of philosophies, and how the fighting and the lightsabers sort of represent that. So I thought that was really, really fun. But other than that, I thought that the Inquisitor, he did what was required of him to move the story forward. Wasn't necessarily what made these episodes stand out. So I'll say that.
I'm just going to say this is on one of the many areas of on In the Galaxy where Jago and I could not disagree more. I'm glad that Rupert Friend's portrayal is brought in, and I just remember
Of course you are.
I sent to. I remember this is a meme I sent to a bunch of friends of ours that then somebody. Then I think it was our friend Boop read back, like they said to me, I read it back in his voice and it's worse. But I think this is maybe one of the funniest memes I've ever made. And I don't consider myself like a specifically great meme maker, but I think I just need to say this. Hey, me and the homies saw you from across the bar and we really dig your vibe, bird sister.
That's pretty much how he's
Yeah.
going about recruiting the Jedi at this point. It's just like, hey, I know we just destroyed the Order and everything, but you should come and work for us because we're cool. And we've got the dark side, and we're not
Look at
like the
these
Jedi
spinny
at all.
lightsabers.
We have spinny lightsabers.
Oh, the
We have
spinny
Fortress
lightsabers.
sabers.
You can read any book in the library you want.
Yeah.
Even if most
I
of them
mean-
are boring.
Yeah.
Love that detail in the
I like
Vader
seeing,
comic.
yeah, I like seeing the Fortress Inquisitorius under construction as well.
Yeah,
Small detail, but it's my
It's just-
background. I thought it was fun.
it's very cool to see, and especially I love seeing things in stages of construction. Obviously, the big one in canon, I feel like is Ilum, where in Fallen Order you can already see they're digging the trenches that will become Starkiller Base, which I love. But yeah, I'm seeing the foundations of Force Inquisitorius is very cool. Yeah, I think that we have this Inquisitor training, and Barriss just kind of Barriss kind of fumbling her way through Inquisitor training, and being it's very funny to me. It's so clear that she doesn't want this, but she's acting so hard like she wants this. even though you can see she doesn't.
If she was too radically left for the Jedi Order, I don't think the broken democracy of the Republic, I don't think she's going to be like chill with a fascist empire, you know? So
yeah. No, but I just mean it's interesting because it's because she's clearly trying to convince them that she wants it, and almost in a way that's trying to convince herself that she wants it. But but she obviously doesn't.
Well, I think that this is sort of very, very archetypal of how a lot of characters in Star Wars, fall to the dark side, and how the Sith and dark siders kind of manipulate and convince people to join them. It's not necessarily it's hardly ever actually by convincing people that the dark side is like really, really good and better than the Jedi, or better than democracy, or better than the Republic, or whatever it may be, better than the light side of the Force. What it really is, in my opinion, over and over, is people, they push people, vulnerable people like Barriss, who doesn't really have a choice, who's pretty much fighting for her life at this point, until they're forced into a point of no return, where they have to commit an act that they can't really reconcile with their own sense of who they are, and with their idea of who they are in other people's eyes. And for Barriss, that kind of comes when she's forced into she's forced into fighting, oh gosh, what's his name, fighting Dante, one of the other Jedi recruits. And she's, we don't have to do this, we don't have to fight. They're fighting back and forth, she's dodging all the saber strikes, and then when she is quite literally pushed to the edge of this bottomless pit, like a literal visual metaphor, she's being pushed to the very, very edge of survival, she gives in and she force chokes him, and kills the fellow Jedi. She kills a Jedi, kills a friend, and kind of at that point, that she feels too far gone, and it's like, well, let's give this whole Inquisitor thing a shot. So I think that it's not necessarily that she's pretending, that her pretending is so different. That's kind of how the dark side works. That's how it works. That's how it worked in episode 3 for Anakin, I think, as well, to give another example. So I actually really liked the way that her sort of onboarding, we could say, to the Inquisitorius. I really like the way that played out, and the way that was portrayed, because I think that's very sort of emotionally accurate to how it often is, which is not necessarily, hardly ever, a wholehearted embrace of everything the dark side stands for.
I do want to just say one thing, which there was an immediate example, because you were saying like there's no pitch to the dark side, which is like the dark side is awesome, the dark side is so much better. Jacob has not watched The Acolyte. For everybody listening, Jacob has not watched The Acolyte,
admittedly,
in which that exact argument is pretty much made by the Stranger. In at least for me, it's like his whole argument, and I'm gonna like not spoil it too much, is basically like, don't you just want to use the Force, like, just because you can? Like, don't you want to use the Force? Like we are great because we can use the Force. Why wouldn't you want to use the Force to get what you want? Like, that's the whole, like, we've been gifted with this thing, we should be using it. Arms. And I will not elaborate for Jacob, but I'm just going to say arms.
Arms.
I guess I'll find out.
Yeah.
There are arms in the Acolyte.
there are, and I just realized I was gonna say something. I don't know why this popped in my head. Afterwards, I'm gonna have to tell Jacob about Birthday Gate. So
I want to know.
No, you don't. It's bullshit.
I don't feel like I do. I really don't feel like I do.
It's crazy is what it is. It's the
so
weirdest
dumb.
controversy to have ever come out of any Star Wars. But it's
We
like
gotta move on. We gotta move on. We gotta move on.
Yeah.
We can't talk about birthday
Okay.
gate.
Yeah. Let's not get bogged down.
Yeah,
All right.
I will shoot myself before I talk about birthday gate.
I was just gonna say the last thing I wanted to note about this about Devoted was, or the two things. One's pretty quick, but the last thing I wanted to note was the lineup of all those Inquisitors. We got, which is just a small moment. We got what is it called? We got Barriss. We got Fourth Sister. We got Merrick, who that was a quick turnaround from. And then we have the bane of my existence, the first brother.
Why is the first brother the bane of your existence?
A couple of reasons. First of all, I was just annoyed because like I wanted to leave the whole like the whole Ahsoka Tales of the Jedi stuff like behind us. Like I was just hoping that was not going to be referenced again. But this is like, oh no, it totally happened. The second reason, there are three reasons. That's the first reason. The second reason is I thought Grand was supposed to be one. And that's just like an aesthetic thing. That's a total nitpick from me. The third thing is, if we're going to try to leave the Ahsoka thing behind, we should call that Inquisitor who he is, the sixth brother mentioned in Ahsoka. No. But no, what you're telling me is Ahsoka went to a backwater planet, like a farming community, like caused the whole community to be in danger, including some of the people she got close to on the planet, and then defeats the Inquisitor without a lightsaber and gets welcomed by Bail Organa twice? You're saying all that happened 2 times? Like, it's just a little weird to me. But that was revealed I think somebody posted a photo of the new encyclopedia that's coming out tomorrow. And while I'm very excited to get it, I'm just like, so we're really saying that Ahsoka Resolve, as bad as it might be, are separate stories? Which, it's just all messy.
Look, the original Death Star plans were stolen like 4 times.
That's true.
And the explanation in Legends canon was the plans were divided 4 ways and they had to each be stolen. Even though if you read or played any of the like individual stories, it's just like, these are the Death Star plans. Sure is good they weren't chopped in quarters.
That is very funny. The last thing I have for this episode, and then I'd love to pass it to both of you to wrap up this episode, is the biggest fumble to me in any of these 3 shorts. I love these 3 shorts very much, but the end of this one kind of makes me a little irritated. Now it's time for you to meet your new master. Automatically, we all know who it is. And then then the thought starts swirling. Oh my god, is Vader still mad at Barriss for what happened to Ahsoka? How is he going to handle Barriss being under his control now? Like, is that too much of Anakin Skywalker seeping in? Because presumably this is pretty close after Revenge of the Sith. This is still like when he's getting used to be Vader. All of the like great big questions were circling in my mind, and none of them were answered because the man says not a single word.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of on the one hand, I kind of think that we never see Vader again in the next episodes. It does kind of feel like it sets up in the audience's mind one expectation of how story is going to go, and then we focus on completely different things, which is fine. Bit of a Chekhov's gun situation, but at the same time,
And honestly, like,
I could totally imagine
not what
Vader.
Chekhov's gun means, Jacob. That's
Am I confusing that with
you're
something
misusing
else? Don't
Chekhov's
hang
gun.
Okay, I apologize
You're thinking
if
red
I'm misusing.
herring because it's set up and doesn't pay off.
Don't hang a gun if you're not going to fire it. Is that not?
Yeah. It's sort of the reverse of Chekhov's gun that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay,
Chekhov's
fair
gun
enough.
is planted and paid off.
Yeah, plan and pay off. And this is planet and not pay off.
Yeah. Anyhow, my point
I saw where
is,
you're going with that.
my point is, I can totally imagine Vader being like, "Look, the Inquisitors are all pawns. I don't give a single shit if Barriss is an Inquisitor because I can do whatever I want with the Inquisitors, and you know they're semi-expendable at this point. So I could very much see him. It seems a bit weird to say given who Anakin slash Vader kind of is. Not very good at letting things go in general, but I could definitely imagine him just being like, my I killed my wife basically, and I just got dunked in lava and all my limbs chopped off by my old master. I kind of have, and I pretty much hate my new master. I kind of have bigger fish to fry than Barriss. Like
My
I
thing
don't
is,
necessarily think that this is
my thing is
such an
honestly, if you just
overwhelming
like,
problem for the
if
story.
you removed the Vader sequence and just pushed the "Long Live the Empire" like to be said with all of the Inquisitors there, and just like remove Vader from the whole thing, I think the short gets about like between 5 to 10% better. Like if you just don't mention Vader. I don't know. It just feels
I
like
think
weird
it's a fun
setup.
tease because it's a story for another day. Like if you're going to tell the story of Vader and Inquisitor Barriss, that is a full story. You cannot dedicate one short out of 3 shorts to it. Like that is a much bigger story to tell.
I can see that as well.
And but it is fun to be like, hey, we are thinking about that, right? Like it is fun that Lucasfilm was like, here's a little morsel, go write that fan fiction, and then someday we'll tell that story in canon for real.
I hope
this
they
is
do.
The 20 issue comic run you were talking about.
I hope they do tell that story.
There.
One last detail about this episode I also there was also a part of me, and this is totally me like using guesswork and like behind the scenes stuff that may or may not have happened. There is a there was a like a weird theory I had in my mind, which totally could or could not have happened. But this happened for Tales of the Jedi, where at the funeral for Master Katri in the second Dooku episode, Ki-Adi-Mundi gives the eulogy, and not Yoda, who we've seen it done before in the Clone Wars. And the reason I assume for that, which I'm pretty confident on actually, is that due to Tom Kane unfortunately suffering a stroke, they did not want to recast Yoda like in Star Wars animation just quite yet, just for him to say a few lines. Like that was something that they wanted to take more their time on, like find like the right person the casting wise and all that kind of stuff. So they gave it to Ki-Adi-Mundi because they couldn't have Tom Kane say anything because his stroke unfortunately rendered his speech capacities like badly. I was wondering if maybe the same thing was happening with James Earl Jones's retirement, where like they knew they weren't going to get James Earl Jones back, but they still wanted to have Vader, so this is kind of their way of hedging their bets. Have Vader do the breathing, just don't have him say anything. And if that is the case, Scott Lawrence is right there. I'm just saying.
I
don't know. I think for the idea of the tease of for the writers to be able to show we are thinking about this. We don't need Vader to say anything. Like he's been as a character, he's really really effective this way. Just being sort of a presence, a dark cloud hanging over all the proceedings. So I don't know if that was what precipitated how it came out in the
That's
end,
just a
but
wild theory I have.
I don't mind it.
Totally could not be true. It just like I'm pretty sure it was true about the Dooku ones, but this one that could have just been a wild extrapolation that I was just making. Anybody have anything else for this short before we go on to realization?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved how cool everything was. I don't have a more elegant way to say it than that, but the way that it was cut, the art direction, the animation, it just, sometimes it just tickles your brain just right. And it's
Yeah, it's
so
fun.
enjoyable just on a basic level of being fun. But yeah, we should get on. We should get on to realization.
And do you have anything else?
No, it's a fun episode. It's good. It was a really these are all fun snapshots of a character's life, and I think that's what this show is trying to do, and I think it succeeds at that. I think any criticism that can be levied against it is if you don't like the premise, but if you don't like the premise, then why are you watching the show? But if you want quick snapshots of a character's life set years apart, this is the show for you.
Yeah, they're very easy and very digestible watches that way. Going on to realization, obviously this is the realization that Barriss is going through, that hey, maybe I don't belong here, which of course is expressed to me most prominently in the helmet symbolism. Barriss is trying, it's very much and we see this with Vader, we see this with many other characters, but very much Barriss is putting on the Inquisitor helmet to hide from the world, and I would also argue from herself, what she's really thinking, what she's really feeling about these situations that she's getting into. She knows this is it. I will go back to the George quote from it was one of the documentaries they're making about Revenge of the Sith, where he was directing Hayden Christensen, and he was saying, in Anakin's mind, there's always a little part of him that's going, what am I doing? And then he says, oh no, I'm doing this. And then the rest of his brain goes, I'm doing this for that, I'm doing this for Padme, I'm doing this for the Republic, I'm doing this for this and that and all that kind of stuff. But there's always that little part of his brain that's constantly asking him, what am I doing? And I feel like that's Barriss, which is Barriss has the what am I doing moment in this episode.
And we get a gender ambiguous Jedi.
I was gonna say that was it is unfortunately the first.
Singular they pronouns.
Yes, it is unfortunately somehow the first. I remember actually it's one of those unfortunately it's one of those blink you miss it thing. I remember actually searching up afterwards. I'm like, did they seriously did they do this for the first time? Did they do this for the first time after Young Jedi Adventures somehow beat them to the punch?
So we have that the twins in the High Republic comics, who I hate.
Tarek and Sarah.
I think that's bad representation. And then we have some other non-binary characters in novels who the authors say it is my intention that this character is non-binary, but they can't use that word, and they use made up pronouns for them, which also complicates things. But this might be the first singular they them Jedi that I know about.
Yeah, Jovi and Young Jedi Adventures, but yeah.
Okay.
There's a Jedi and Young Jedi Adventures.
No, you guys are very young compared to me, but I'm not watching baby shows for babies. I'm sorry. I love Star Wars, but I'm not doing it.
And what I'm telling you is, and I'm not joking about this at all, the most political Star Wars, blatantly, the most leftist Star Wars is Young Jedi fucking Adventures. There is an episode. That's
kind of a reach when we have Andor right here.
No. Listen to me. There is an episode about.
Does someone build a pipe bomb and throw it at cops? Because
there is an episode.
Don't do that in Young Jedi Adventures. It is not the most political leftist Star Wars show.
There is an episode that is all about gentrification, and the villain of the episode is a businessman named Ozon Nimby. His name is literally Nimby. It's again, never would have expected it, but somehow.
I'm so happy for you and for Young Jedi Adventures. I'm still not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
No, I get it. No,
Eli will never.
I've heard
Also-
the Lego Star Wars stuff is hilarious and great too, but like, I don't know, if I was like 12, I'm sure I would love it. I'm sure it would be my shit. If I had a like kid, I'm sure I would watch it with my kid and get a kick out of it. But at 33 years old, the fact that I'm watching anything Star Wars is kind of fun and silly. I'm definitely not going to watch the aimed at like young kids stuff.
Yeah.
Although
that
I
is-
will say Jedi Temple Challenge ruled.
Oh yeah, it did.
I watched that for Ahmed Best and no regrets there. That was dope.
There's a meme. I'm referencing all these weird memes this episode. There's a meme. I think it was. It's of the Rise of Skywalker scene of all the Jedi speaking to Rey, and it's like the caption is like, every Jedi who's ever lived lives in you, Rey. Rise, Rey. Rey, like, bring balance back as I did. Use your core, Padawan. But yeah, I'll also just say this: as wrong as she later realizes it to be, I do like seeing Barriss with an Inquisitor lightsaber. Just the aesthetic of it just looks cool. Again, just like Andy, what you're talking about earlier, like that, like in the very like wish fulfillment sort of way, it's just like it's cool to see Barriss as the thing that at least I had thought, and E.K. Johnson, maybe some others had thought, I had imagined her as for all these years, ever since Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, oh, Eddie, go ahead.
I like this character we got. I mean, it's a very brief character whose job is to die, but I really love the moment where they say like how exhausted they are, and they're so tired from running, and they're so alone, but they know that joining the Empire is not a solution. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a very defiant, very Jedi moment, and I dig that.
Yeah, no,
I dig it as well. I dig it as
fantastic.
well.
We don't have a name for that Jedi, do we? This is my trivia brain all going off. I absolutely realize that, but I'd love to at least get a name for that Jedi.
Bonry 9.
Vonry 9.
Bonry 9 instead of non-binary.
That's good. Speaking of Tuckerizations, actually, I forgot to mention about last episode. The last episode was written by a cinematographer at Lucasfilm who's been there many years, named Nicholas Anastasiou. The only reason I care about that is because he got a Glupshido Jedi in Attack of the Clones. That was a Tuckerization of his name called Nikanastasiou, which I just think is really cool.
Those are my favorite characters in Star Wars.
Nikanastasiou and Sefjet Josal and Baltar Swan and all the Glupshido Jedis on Geonosis.
Baltar Swan's a name named after a specific person?
No, I was just talking about like just generally Glupshido Jedi in the Battle of Geonosis.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, as you said, Andy, like the Jedi just wanted to rest, and Barriss, was trying to do the merciful thing that she could in that situation, in that very warped situation, but then the Force just kills him.
Yeah,
and there's something about like that brutality. I think that's very well communicated.
Yeah, I think this episode and this section with the Jedi especially really underline how Barriss sort of misunderstands the Inquisitorius and the Empire at first, and I think this is really where she kind of understands what they're really about, where she, in some sense, at least with kind of how she's trying to go about hunting down the Jedi in the village, taking a less, senseless and unspeakable approach, trying to be more compassionate, with the Empire's constituents, trying to bring this other Jedi on board. She sort of sees the Inquisitorius and the Empire like as potentially like a vehicle for a solution to some of the problems that people are facing. And in a way, the fourth sister kind of more understands more, like this is truly like just an authoritarian, regime, and we can kind of, we especially as Inquisitors, we can and should do whatever we want,
Yeah.
to the
I
people
think
under us.
I think for Barriss too, like Barriss is such a survivor that she sees like survival as like it's better to survive, exist in a shitty system, and try and do good there if you can, than to stand by your beliefs and die. And I think this Jedi shows her that, like, if you survive and lose yourself, then like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
And
really
it is-
survived?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
life are you leading?
Survival is not the ultimate end. Like,
Yeah.
doing good with the time you have is the ultimate end. And I think it's very powerful that we don't see Barriss use a lightsaber after this.
Yeah. No, I'm not to get too far ahead, but like there's that very, and we see Luke do this, we see Ezra do this, we see so many other like great, often older, more distinguished, more wise Jedi. I feel like it's a very wise Jedi move of Barriss as these, like, I'm gonna call it like the targeted not fighting, like of Barriss just dodging, never pulls out a lightsaber, never does anything aggressive against Lynn in the third short, because it's the Bankno, you can't win, but there are alternatives to fighting. Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack, kind of stuff, which I really like, which I love watching Barriss do. And every time especially like a Darksider gets very frustrated with it is very fun to watch, because it's very much like you don't get it. You're just so mad because you don't get it. You don't get what this whole thing is about. And for more of that, we'll look in the next episode. But I was just gonna say these three shorts have an interesting like dynamic in them, which I'm gonna call Genevieve O'Reilly, the Genevieve O'Reilly effect, which was like George cast Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith for a bunch of scenes that mostly got cut because of Delegation of 2000 and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then I remember, or I think it was actually, or I think this was Deborah Chow talking about Joel Edgerton, but like I remember, but it still works for Genevieve because then fast forward to Andor, and we get to see how dynamic and how great of an actress Genevieve O'Reilly is.
I'm sorry, didn't we see that in Rebels first, though?
We did see this in Rebels first. Jacob would have killed me. Thank you for rescuing me from that. In Rebels and Andor. And the reason I'm talking about that is because the woman who played Fourth Sister in Obi-Wan Kenobi is the voice of Fourth Sister in this episode, after having done literally nothing in Obi-Wan Kenobi. And like, I find it like it's one of those like very nice pleasant surprises when you like find out, oh wait, the person that they cast just as a bit role like can act their freaking heart out, because I loved Lynn's portrayal in this episode, in all three of these, really. I just wanted to mention that. Anything else for realization?
I mean, it's a super quick one. It's only 13
Yeah, it's
minutes
very
long.
short.
It's so short. I mean, it does everything it needs to do. It utilizes the time extremely well, but there's only so much you can say about it. I mean, like,
yeah, I was gonna
the
say,
fight scenes are great. The voice acting is all great. The visuals are all great. Like, and I think it communicates the message of why Barriss falls off this quickly. Like, and again, I don't think she was ever going to like make it as an Inquisitor. Like, she didn't make it as a Jedi. She's not going to do better under a more conservative, more strict, more fascist regime than the Jedi were. So like, she was bound to get kicked out of this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so
I would
let's
agree.
go on. Let's go on to The Way Out, which is, I think, probably my favorite short from Tales of the Empire, period. I will just say, like, and on par with like many of the other ones I love, especially like the Sith Lord. I'm thinking from Tales of the Jedi.
Can I jump in right out the gate?
Yeah,
Go
I
for it.
love that Barriss has a like very dykey lesbian haircut.
Yeah.
It's a great hairstyle.
It's so good. It's so good. I love that she has like a little furry goblin, like little furry gay goblin as her buddy. I think that's great. I love when gays and lesbians work together. That's unity right there. And I think like Barriss becoming this like woods witch healer on the edge of town is like, it's very funny for like two reasons. One, like everyone knows a lesbian over 40 who is just the woods witch healer on the edge of town, in my circle of friends at least. And it's also like, if you're a leftist and like an extreme radical leftist, you only have like a few choices on what Star Wars character you end up being. Like, one is you become Saw Gerrera, one is you die young like Cassian Andor, and one is you become like sort of this like pacifist outside of society who like you have fully ascended. And I love that like that is what Barriss has become. Like I love that she's not a fighter anymore. Like, and that's not a bad thing. Like there's in leftist political circles, there's like this idea that like if you're not out there chucking bricks at cop cars every day, that you're a sellout. And it's like, some of us got bad knees now, you know, like we can't all be out there on the front lines of the protest. And
she isn't doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. She is serving in the way that she can still. And with all the trauma she's gone through, like, she was a freaking child soldier. Like, she has earned her peace. Like, I love that I love this episode. I love this direction for the character. It's perfect. Like, this is perfect.
By the way, I was looking just because I wanted to see what that goblin species was exactly. It's called a Mosenian. I think they just like became one of my favorite Star Wars species like ever.
Every single one of those guys is gay. Like that is a gay goblin, little furry guy.
And what a weird range of things they've appeared in. Mosenians have been in obviously this. Rise of Skywalker was the debut of this.
Oh, never mind, I hate him. Just kidding.
Part 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a short story from in the Tales from the Death Star. Just a weird combination of all 5, all 4 of those media sources. But yeah, one of the things I like off the bat really is like the. Like you're saying before, Andy, like the moment of like genuine self-reflection of Barriss, like as the kids say, explaining her lore to the family, like that, like just her taking a moment to acknowledge how crazy her life has been is like genuine, like it's sobering, and it's really like it's a very like you that could easily have been cheesy. And just like we need to catch the audience up on what Barriss has done, but it instead feels to me like a very like, wow, look what has transpired to get me to this point. Look what's happened in my life. That now, you know, I'm a lesbian healer in the middle of nowhere on this ice planet. It doesn't look very hospitable, and I think it's probably a Force Nexus, honestly, but. Yeah, actually, I'm going to ask both of you about this, which is I'm just going to throw out. I feel like for me, the elephant of the room in the room of this episode is the cave. Like, I think that there is some beautiful stuff that's done in the cave, but I'm interested to hear both of your thoughts about how the cave is utilized.
I don't think the cave is inherently supernatural. Like, I don't think it's like the Dagobah Darkside Cave. If they ever come out and say it is, I won't be upset or anything. But in my mind, it is just a naturally occurring cave that Barriss knows really well, and the little goblin guy knows really well. And the Inquisitor goes off angry and overconfident and gets lost in it. And she is jumping at her own shadows. And like, again, even though I don't think the cave itself is supernatural, the fact that she is bringing all of this negative energy and fear into it with her, she's making it worse, and she's making it scarier. If she was like calm and chill, it'd be fine.
Yeah, I sort of I agree with most of what you said, although I actually do. I like the idea that it is supernatural, just the idea of, especially because like it reminded me a lot of course, what Yoda and Luke were talking about right before the cave. What's in there? Only what you take with you. Well, if we apply that philosophy, and this can work actually outside of supernatural stuff, it doesn't have to mean it's a nexus of force, but like, what did the family bring into that cave? Well, they wanted to escape. They had the hope of, trying to hide, and that pushed them through and got them to Barriss' ship. And yeah, what did our sister bring into that cave? She brought into the cave her rage and her anger, and if you're not careful, you can get lost in it. It's for me exemplified most by that line. There's the exchange. There's no way out, is there? That's what the Empire wants you to think. Where it feels like of course the cave is acting as this greater metaphor for the system of the Empire, and how once you're in it, it's very, very, very hard to get out. But yeah,
Absolutely. I think
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to add on, I thought the cave was aside from generating many, many, many very, very memorable lines that really hit the nail on the head in terms of what this episode is talking about as well. I'm a big fan of, times like this, like, the episode in Rebels when the Inquisitors go into the Lothal Tumble, whenever, often an Inquisitor, but whenever a Darksider kind of, for lack of a more elegant term, gets a taste of their own medicine in terms of realizing that however much they try to exert control, exert power, they aren't actually in control of their own reality because of the choices that they've made, because of how they've just given everything to, fear and anger and, just everything revolving around the power to take life, to exert power and exert dominance. I'm a big fan of moments like this, and I think for the fourth sister, this does do a very good job of sort of bringing out a very, very different side of a character that we really haven't heard a lot from Lynn, and I really like as well. One thing that I want to point out is, Barriss totally turns on its head what the Grand Inquisitor said earlier when she's, dodging I guess this is before the kid, but she said your anger makes you predictable, as she's dodging the lightsaber strokes that Lynn is sending her way. And I think that kind of perfectly encapsulates how Barriss sort of after all this, she sort of constructs her own path, and in doing so is kind of proving Lynn wrong, and proving the Inquisitorius wrong about everything that she's been through at the same time. So I was a big fan of that.
Yeah, this one is just like a gorgeous piece, and I obviously like shouts out to Matt Miknovitz, who wrote this episode, who wrote so many great other Star Wars stuff. Shout outs to especially Marriage Salinger and Maria Kilstead, who voiced Barriss and Lynn, and also, as always, shout outs to the Kiners, because they never miss on music. They never miss on music. They're incapable of missing on music.
I think every Barriss story should end with a semi-ambiguous death scene, and I think that should just be a trademark of the character, like Jedi Master Crook from Legends. Just like, how many times has Barriss Offee maybe died or maybe not?
She's the new Shaq T.
Yeah, it's delightful. I know Barriss heads were like mad about it, but
I
I genuinely think it's beautiful
annoyed.
that you give her a hopeful open ending, and that she has maybe brought another potential sapphic love interest back from the dark side. I think it's hilarious. I think it's great, and I think it works.
I will just think it's funny. I've been comparing because I feel like they have different paths, of course, but I feel like the paths mirror each other in interesting ways. Where we have this, we have this Jedi, and her fate is left kind of ambiguous at the end of season 5 of the Clone Wars, and then she returns in another animated thing way later, and then at the end of that season of the show, she maybe dies, sort of, kind of, in a way. Now, I could be describing two people with that description. I could be describing Barriss Offee, or I could be describing Ahsoka Tano. And it's very funny to me that in the second show that both of them are in, Rebels for Ahsoka and TLC the Empire, they both have this moment where we're like, so I don't think they're dead, but they might be. With Twilight Super. But yeah. Anything else for any of these three, but specifically the way out, before we wrap this puppy up?
No, I think these were a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful trio of episodes. Very memorable. I think a great conclusion, Coda, to Barriss's story, sort of continuing, building on everything that we see of her in the Clone Wars. I really think it definitely does justice to her character, and all the potential that she kind of has to be a very, very very unique and nuanced version of one Jedi's very, very particular Jedi's journey during this crazy time of Order 66. So yeah, I'm a fan. I really like these.
Yeah, I really do think you can watch like her episodes of the Clone Wars and then watch these 3 like mini episodes, and you get a remarkably compelling arc. And I know that she's very different from the Legends version, and I liked that version of the character, but I do think I prefer this. Like, I think it's grappling with bigger, more difficult questions, like, if you're right, how far is too far? And like, if you find yourself surrounded by fascists, like, how do you get out of that? Like there's really messy questions here, and there's not clean moral answers to any of them. Like, she didn't willingly join the Empire, but she did, and like, how responsible is she for that? And like, she gets out, but like, how guilty is she for that stuff still? And like, the stuff with the Jedi, like, I know I sort of tongue-in-cheek said like, I don't think she did anything wrong, but like, I can look out my window and see Harper's Ferry. Like, how far is too far when you're right?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's worth thinking about, though.
I was just gonna say, you might know this a little bit better than I do, but I feel like I think this was in like one of the like Essential Readers Chronology books. I think it was in that book. In Legends, does Barriss not become the most powerful person in the galaxy for like 5 seconds?
Ooh, it's been a minute. Her stuff was all like battlefield medic, right?
Yeah, and
it was all
I
about
feel
like
like
her being a healer, and it was really good. But like, and I like that they still did that here. But I think how she got there is so interesting in canon.
There's I have to look it up. I have to go to Wikipedia, but like I think what I've seem to remember is that there was this experimental new drug they were trying out that could heal people very well, and they were mostly injecting non-force sensitive individuals with it. But in a moment of desperation, Barriss injects herself with the new drug, and and one of the side effects they didn't realize because they'd never tested it on a force sensitive person is it skyrockets their midichlorian count or something like that. So she's the most powerful person in the galaxy very briefly, and but then she basically turns the off switch on it, she gives herself the antidote or something like that. So I just find it funny that she was the most powerful person in the galaxy for at least that's what I remember from this, but it's been a long time. But yeah, no, I also loved these three. I loved Barriss's story. Thought it was very nuanced and well told. I think that is going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Until next time, next week, I think, let's see, I just want to make sure that we're not skipping anything. Next week, we're starting right off Season 20, Episode 1 of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Casa.
Let's go.
Woohoo!
I've been waiting for this. I'm waiting for this one.
Yeah, yes, I know. We are going to be doing Andor. We are going to be doing Andor. I may or may not mention that account I once ran, except for I'm definitely going to mention it. But yeah, we're going to be doing Andor. I'm not exactly sure which episode yet, but we are. I can confirm our first guest for the season, which I'm very excited about. For one of the first 3 episodes of Andor, we haven't figured out which one yet, but we are so excited to invite on somebody who is one of those people like the Bombad Cast guys who we had on for the first time a few months ago. Is somebody who I cannot believe is only on this show for the first time, and it's a terrible mistake, and I'm glad to rectify it now. And that is someone Andy actually is pretty familiar with. He is the host of Triad of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. It is our friend Goose, who we will have on the show for one of the first 3 episodes. We're still figuring out details about which. Speaking of Andy and Goose, because this is going to come out in I don't think it's going to come out this week. I think it's going to come out next week or something like that. We're rapidly nearing an event that we've been planning that Andy is going to be a major part of for Epic Confrontations. It's called the Coaxium Run. Andy and Goose have chosen they've been, as Tobias Becker would say, they've been putting together a crew to activate their coaxium boosters and see who can get that long sought after point that it gives them.
Just like Top Gun, Goose is going to get fried.
All right, yeah.
Or is that Iceman? I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen Top Gun. Anyway.
Yeah, but before we go, actually, I'm going to pass it over to Andy. Andy, where can we find you and all the stuff you do?
I'm out of One Hat Town on Blue Sky and on Instagram. I have a podcast called Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers that you should listen to. And I guest on a lot of stuff. I've been on Casterly Talk a bunch recently. So go listen to me if you want. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your dad.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sandy, for coming on for this episode. We always appreciate having you on as I'm just gonna keep calling you this, our Tales correspondent, because I'm hoping that'll good luck us our way into getting more Tales.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
But yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. You can find us everywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on social media at In a Galaxy Pod everywhere. At the time we're recording this, I'm still in the process of phasing In a Galaxy off Twitter, but it's happening. It's happening slowly, but it is happening. And we're recording this in late November. I am almost certain that our Twitter account will not be there by the end of the month. But yeah, so follow us on Blue Sky, where we've all made our refuge. I say like it was some sort of natural disaster that a billionaire destroyed Twitter, which even for as bad as Twitter is, it's impressive how bad he destroyed it. Honestly, there's something impressive about how like bad it is now. just like
Yeah, Twitter is dead. Long live Blue Sky.
Yeah, absolutely. You can also follow me everywhere on my link tree, linktr.ee/_OGFan327. And I think if that's it, and all I left to say is may the force be with you.
Always.
Always.